Hi, I'm John DeVore. Welcome to the DeVore Fidelity YouTube channel. This is Lulu Bear. She's the assistant director today. Today I want to actually talk about something that is not music or hi-fi related at all, and it has to do with one of my other obsessions, and that is mechanical watches. Most particularly vintage mechanical chronographs. A chronograph is just a watch that has a stopwatch built into it. And I love them because of their sort of beautiful complexity, the wonderful idea that there's a tiny, tiny little motor on my wrist that is not only keeping time, but it's being wound by my motions. It's the exquisite craftsmanship that it takes to make something like that be precise and accurate. And then on top of that, to have a stopwatch in addition, which seems to me to be one of the more useful complications in a wristwatch. So I have had, excuse me, she's shedding. So I've had a love of mechanical chronograph wristwatches since I was a kid. I wrote an article for the Occasional magazine, which is now online at Part-Time Audiophile, and I will put a link in the description below. And the article that I'm referring to, I've written a couple of watch articles. The one I'm referring to was about 1969. And in 1969, there was a race to build the first chronograph wristwatch that was automatic winding. Up to then, everything was manual wind, including the famous moon watch and all that. And there were three movements or calibers, which is the little mechanism inside the watch. It's essentially the motor that makes it all go and keep time. There were three movements that were released that year that all have some claim to the crown of first automatic chronograph. One of them, the most famous, was from Tag Heuer with a team with Breitling and Hamilton, among a few others. Another one was Zenith, also from Switzerland. Zenith released their El Primero, the first, in 1969. And the third was actually from Japan, and that was from Seiko. Seiko released the 6139 movement in 1969 with a bunch of just beautiful watches. And so the 6139 watches are one of my favorites to collect, and I've had a great many of them over the years, and I've hung on to a good handful of these. They are much, much less expensive to collect than either of the Swiss counterparts. And they came in a ton of case shapes, really fun, juicy colors. They're a lot of fun. They're very reliable. It's just these rugged movements. A lot of them will need to be serviced, obviously, because these watches are now 50 years old. But there are really a great deal of them out there in good working order. And like I said, they're nearly all under $1,000. Many of them under $300. So I'll go through a few of them. The oldest one I have, the only one that is probably from 1969, is this one here. And I know this is a Japanese market watch, and I'll show you why. But this is a 6139 6010, and it is Gesundheit. And it's referred to as a proof, and that's how we know it was most likely a Japanese market watch. It says waterproof on the front. It also says waterproof on the case back. And legend has it that a lawyer spoke to Seiko before they made their American debut with these watches, and told them that proof means you have to guarantee it, and resistant is more of a suggestion. And so the US watches all say water resistant. Other nice things about these, they've got this beautiful, more traditional shaped case, which is sort of called a C case. Here's a blue one from that series, and it's a water resistant one. It's a little later, and probably an American market one. Beautiful blue. And it's called a C case because it's got sort of a letter C cupping each side of the dial and forming the lugs. It's a very elegant shape, and it's very elegant proportions, in my opinion, for this watch. And here's another one of those, same case. This one with a gold dial and a black subdial. They made a couple of really fun colored ones. This is a closed lug case. This is the 80 series cases. This is an 80-20, often called the blue dot for obvious reasons. A nice navy dial with a fun little light blue subdial. Here's the same with a brown color scheme. Here's another brown one. This was made for the medical establishment, and it's called the Pulsations. It's a different case. It's a square cushion case, but with a brown dial, and it's a Pulsations dial, which means around the edge, instead of a tachometer scale, which is what most of them would have come with, for identifying distance over time, time to distance measurements. This one has a pulsation scale, which allows a doctor to count the beats over a certain amount of time. And just tons of fun. Here's the Halloween watch, a nice diver with a big juicy orange dial. The most famous of the 6138s, the 6139 watches, is the 6002. And this one its nickname is the Pogue. And that is because a Colonel Pogue wore this on a mission to Skylab, making this the very first automatic chronograph worn in space. The Pogue technically has the gold dial. They all have Pepsi bezels. And they also made these with silver dials and black dials and navy blue dials. Oh, and the last one, the one I'm wearing, is nicknamed the Helmet because it has a gigantic, hilarious 1970s case, sort of a volcano-shaped case, that was very much an homage, copy, and or ripoff of Omega's 1969 case for the Flightmaster. And you can see it's almost like a cartoony version of that. But it's a lot of fun, and it cost a tiny fraction of what a Flightmaster costs. The other watch that Seiko was working on, Seiko was working on two separate movements to release in 1969 to claim the prize of first automatic chronograph. And the other movement is called a 6138. And that makes me feel that they expected to release the 6138 first, which makes sense because it is a fancier, it is a slightly more advanced movement. It has two subdials instead of one, so you can track seconds, you can track minutes, and you can track elapsed hours. And the first 6138 watch I ever bought also has my favorite nickname for any watch, and that is the Root Beer Bull's Head. A bullhead watch means that it's been rotated 90 degrees so that the pushers and the crown are up top. So the pushers look a little bit like bull's horns. And it's root beer because it's delicious. But this has just a big, funky, asymmetrical case, a beautiful fishbone bracelet. This is just a really fun watch. I don't have as many of the 6138s. They're a little more expensive, and they don't really strike the same. They're not quite as fun, in my opinion, but there are some beautiful ones. Here's a JPS John Player Special Black and Gold. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any other ideas for video topics that I could dive into, let me know in the comments below. And until then, I hope to see you soon at the next video. Thanks. Bye. Come on, Lulu.